All right, everyone, welcome to our next session. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Carley Childress, founder and CEO of Macorva. She's going to be talking about how text notifications and mobile interfaces improve CX analytics. Welcome, Carley.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I appreciate the opportunity here to present. And my title here is a bit of a mouthful, but hopefully it'll be helpful to share a little bit about some ways that we've helped sort of innovate in the CX analytics space. And I'll also include a case study about recent implementation. So just to sort of lay the groundwork on a customer experience and really the role of feedback that kind of leads into this particular case study. Obviously, the role of feedback is really critical within measuring the customer experience because we need it to understand how we can increase sales performance, how we can improve customer retention, prevent churn turnover, also develop our employees, kind of give them that feedback on how they're doing with customers and ways that they can improve, giving them coaching, training when necessary, and then also using it to increase brand awareness. And oftentimes that's by leveraging customer feedback on public review sites and really using it to help kind of grow the reach of the business. So there's really a lot riding on customer feedback and a lot of different applications and value associated with capturing these experiences from our customers. And so that gets into kind of the key question around this particular talk and case study, which is, well, why do we need mobile interfaces? What's really the value in bringing in things like text notifications, smartphone design, that sort of thing? And what we've actually seen is that when we use digital interactions, and by that I mean, when we do surveys via email, that's kind of the traditional route that we see, even today in 2020, that's how most folks are collecting feedback from their customers. We really only see incremental improvements in how we're getting responses from customers, the quality of the responses from customers, and then ultimately the action that we're able to take from those results. So if you look at a digital sort of paradigm where you're deploying surveys to customers via email, kind of that traditional workflow, we're automatically right off the bat, we're going to be dealing with a lower completion rate because just the nature of email versus something like text messaging, you're going to see a much lower open rate of only about 20% on average versus a 98% open rate on text messages. Average response time, I thought this is quite interesting, for an email, if a response is given, takes 90 minutes versus 90 seconds for a text message. And then we'll get into just really the experience of giving feedback and how it can sort of evolve if you're designing it for using mobile interfaces versus something traditional where you're really just kind of depending on the customer accessing it via email. So really there's a lot of kind of limitations with restricting feedback to kind of this email exchange. And so we wanted to kind of map out really kind of the differences between what you could gain from kind of moving into the 2020 era and kind of going where your customers are at is our little joke about it, because your customers are of course on their smartphones and that's where everyone is spending a lot of time. And so we want to really maximize that exchange. And so if we look at the process of collecting feedback with digital exchanges, so via email, we've got a customer experience that typically occurs. We're going to email a survey to that customer, and then the customer then has to check their email in order to even access the survey. And that survey also has to make it past any filters that the person might have in their email, in their inbox. It has to catch someone's attention. I don't know if anyone else has the same issues I have with reaching inbox 0, but oftentimes it's difficult for emails to stand out and catch someone's attention because of just how many the average person receives in a day. So we have right off the bat some pretty big challenges in terms of getting someone to actually give us feedback. We then have to get the customer to open the email, to click the survey link, then go into a new browser where they're then going to typically answer question 1, then next page, answer question 2, next page. And that can actually be repeated quite a few times. But let's say that we only go through a couple of questions and then we have that space for open comments, and then the customer is able to finally submit their feedback. There's quite a lot of steps in order to capture a customer's perspective. And in this kind of smartphone era, we're finding that a lot of folks just simply do not have the patience to go through all of those steps. Whereas when we collect feedback with full utilization of mobile interfaces, smartphones, and that experience, we can really streamline it by starting at the customer experience and then texting a survey to the customer at that point of engagement. And then the customer is able to immediately click the survey link that's included in that text message just right from the notification page. And then in that survey is the ability for the customer to tap responses. And on average, actually, it's just above 2 seconds in order to give actually quite a lot of detailed feedback. So once we get to that point, then we're submitted. So when we make full use of mobile interfaces, these brilliant pieces of technology that we all have in our fingertips, we're really able to streamline this feedback process. We're also able to make improvements on the quality of data that we're collecting. Because while digital communication has changed how we send out surveys and has certainly made it a little bit easier for people to take a survey, the results have not actually evolved beyond what we would have had with a pen and paper. We're still asking very high-level questions which yield high-level results. And we rely on the open comments that customers provide to sort of fill in the gaps. And we really want to kind of look at how we can incorporate a mobile design to improve the quality of the CX data that we're getting. And with our platform, and you'll see how it's been implemented here in a moment, we actually do this by deploying targeted surveys to our partners' customers via text message. So again, you see here that it's just a quick tap to open up the survey. And then what you see here is that we contextualize it. We make it targeted to that particular customer's experience. So we can let them know what was the general experience at the facility today, how would you describe it, and for the specific individual who helped you, how were they and how would you describe them. This takes just a couple of seconds for someone to go in and provide a few taps and share their overall experience, tell you what was impactful, and then also describe the specific employee and how their perception of the employee was as well. So every tap that a customer provides in this experience is a data point, is a quantifiable, measurable source of data that with Macorva, we're able to use to quantify CX and provide better analytics on the back end. Another interim step, which is relevant to the case study that we'll get into here now, is that we also have that ability to drive external reviews. So for obviously many B2C and even a lot of times for some B2B organizations, It's a really important aspect of CX to really promote your brand and market yourself to new customers. So having that integrated step to also drive external reviews so that your happy customers have that prompt to go and share their experiences on public sites is also going to be extremely helpful here in this case study that I'm going to outline, which is ASP Care's specialty pharmacy. They are actually a network here in the United States with 24 locations across 7 states. A lot of them, as you can see, are clustered where I'm located here in Texas. They actually specialize in a few areas, including chemotherapy drugs, but also a big part of their business is HIV and PrEP care. So you really have a customer demographic that, if you can imagine, in the era of COVID, this is, these are the definition of immunocompromised patients. Right, so this is a scenario where we really had an opportunity to help capture some very critical feedback for this organization because their customers were in quite a vulnerable position. So being able to go in and proactively text message those customers at the point of interaction and collect feedback on how they were feeling, how their experience was, if they had any concerns, was quite a big sort of mission here with this pharmacy network. And so sort of some key findings that I'll mention here are that they were able to benchmark CX ratings, and I'll get into how that operates here in the dashboards in a minute, for every location and for every team within their organization. I mean, as far as promoting their brand and promoting their expanding their reach with customers, we were very proud, happy for them to see that they experienced a 13% increase in their Google reviews, which were their primary review platform, within the first 2 weeks of deploying these text-based surveys. And all those were 5-star reviews. So it was a great way for them to really share the experiences of their patients with the community and make sure that they were really promoting the kind of care that they're able to provide. And then one thing that we've been able to maintain is the rate of 1,000 responses per week. And that is going along with the specific feedback attributes that, if you recall from that survey experience, are really kind of a key aspect to this mobile design. Is it's not only that we're texting the customer and we're driving up completion rates, that's obviously important, especially in these kinds of environments where the customers are, they're going to be more accessible via the smartphone. So we obviously want to drive up completion rates, but we also want to make sure we're getting quality data. And with those tappable attributes, we're able to really segment out a lot of really critical information for this group as far as the trends in CX or customer experience and the feedback. So we can look at how the response rate evolves over time and how things are changing as far as the response rate, as well as the average employee rating that goes along with that feedback. Then also, of course, looking at the outstanding qualities. So not only that hard metric of how happy are customers, what's the overall feedback that they've been providing to you, but also what are the kind of key attributes that they're using to describe your service or your organization. And those are going to be those very specific and actionable qualities that you can use to say, okay, well, maybe the experience has been going down a little bit. We see that we're getting a lot more feedback that the service has been slow, that folks have been a little disorganized. So that's something that we can immediately go in and work on for this particular location or for this particular type of service that we provide. And then for this particular organization, and this is anonymized, obviously, for ASP Cares, but they do have quite a variety of locations. And so being separated by geography, looking back on the map, they had clinics in Las Vegas, quite a cluster in Texas, and then even some up into the Midwest. So having those geographical separations for the management team meant that it was really important that they were able to kind of see a bird's eye view of how all of these different locations were performing next to each other so that they could identify where our resources most needed. And we're able to collect that specific feedback from those surveys on each of their specific pharmacies and able to show which are the ones that are highest rated based on customer feedback and as well as the number of surveys that have been provided, and which are the ones that are the lowest rated, right? That's kind of your pinky and your thumb, right? Of the ones that are the standouts that you want to be able to evaluate. So we provide that, as well as for these folks, it was also important to have a certain level of reporting by being able to kind of segment out the different stores based on all of these different attributes and scores that we quantify here. So we can look at the average CX rating for a store, as well as the average employee rating provided within that survey. We can segment by number of responses, by response rate, as well as by the attribute percentages. So being able to create custom reports that indicate how many of the stores are above a certain level at in CX score, how many have a certain percentage of feedback that they are disorganized or that they are slow. Getting that really specific feedback was really important to this team so that they could know, where their attention was most needed. And again, at a very critical time for this particular business unit, given the state of the world and how important it was for their patients to continue to receive a high quality of care and a consistent customer experience. And then also being able to look at the employee standouts. Now for ASP Cares, this is fairly synonymous with the pharmacy location, because oftentimes there is one customer-facing individual, the pharmacist, who is working with the patients, but there are also a lot of contributing factors that go into that, whether someone additional has come in to assist or to check out. So being able to capture feedback on those specific employees who worked with that organization is also something that we offer, so that, again, you're not just able to rate and describe your experience with the pharmacy or with the business or with the service, but also with the specific employee who helped you, who you had that interaction with. And so on the back end, we're able to, in our dashboards, report out on the employees who are what we call your customer favorites, where customers are having a great experience with them. They're consistently rated very highly. And then we can also look at the employees who are not having great interactions with customers. And obviously, in this particular industry, we want to identify that. I think in any industry we do, but this gives us a way to proactively identify who is maybe struggling in their interactions, and also pair it with actionable feedback. Because at the end of the day, all of this data does no one any good if it's not actionable, if it doesn't point us in the right direction. So for these employees who might be struggling, we're able to relay to them, these are the attributes that people are commonly using to describe their experiences with you. So if we see that you come up as rude or unhelpful or distracted, these are all things that we can work on with you to help kind of bring up that performance with regards to your customer interactions. And then also looking at for in this particular type of space, you're dealing with kind of the same group of customers with quite a few touch points throughout a long period of time, because these folks, these medications are obviously essential to them, and they're being treated over potentially their entire life. So there are going to be a lot of interactions with your business. And so we also wanted to capture the customer profiles. And that was something that was really helpful with this organization to identify, the patients that maybe have had some great experiences. And so, we absolutely are happy to see that. And maybe we want to be able to call out the employees who are helping those particular patients or the location. But obviously we want to identify the patients in this instance who are unhappy and who've had a bad experience, because it not only on the business side, it is something where we want to, of course, proactively address churn. We want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward and that we're really making the effort to improve the customer experience. When we do see these breaks in the chain, we have that opportunity to go in and intervene. But also for this type of organization, it's quite important to have that connection to the customers and to have their voices be heard, and to have that connection that's really affirming that you are listening, that their experiences, have been taken into account, and that you're going to do better in the future. So keeping these profiles together is also a really good way to make sure that you're able to maintain those strong customer connections in situations like these, where you have multiple interactions with the same customers over a long period of time. And then finally, something I wanted to highlight here is the employee dashboards. This is something where we really wanted to kind of pull together all the different types of feedback that our platform is able to collect. In this instance, it's actually employee engagement surveys, as well as 360 feedback, as well as customer feedback. So really someone who's kind of has a lot of interactions with customers as well as with their internal team. So being able to relay that customer feedback to employees alongside all of their internal peer-to-peer feedback is really just a helpful way for us to make sure that we're giving all of this back to the individual employees. Because a lot of times we see and we hear that employees don't necessarily have access to the feedback that people share about them, especially in a customer context. So giving them their own personalized dashboard that lets them know, this is what customers have been saying about you, here's how it's changed over time, here's the noteworthy attributes that stand out based on their experiences, and it's all put in the same context as your regular performance review and any kind of survey results that might have been deployed internally. So that is that concludes my talk, I should say. Elizabeth, I don't know if I went over on time or if that's good, but I certainly appreciate everyone's attention, and you, Elizabeth, for introducing me and letting me come up here and present today.
Of course. Carley, thank you so much. That was incredibly informative. what an awesome, suite of, different types of products. That's fantastic. I know the audience is, definitely out there in this moment of digital transformation, trying to push for the customer, and really bringing their voice to the forefront, and their employee. I think that's equally as important. So really awesome to hear what you guys are doing. And I did also want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. I know everyone is incredibly busy at this moment, so I just wanted to thank you so much for being able to join us here on the summit today. I know our audience really appreciates it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Of course. All right, so we are going to be moving on to our next session here in just a second.